Welcome back. I'm Tyler, you're watching Scarfing Scarves, and welcome to the 35th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, Alice and the Pirates' latest release, Country of Jewelry Above the Clouds, is getting in on the summer travel market with the employment of what could only be described as personal flight equipment. The brand appears to be going for innovation and putting the wings up front instead of in the back, and sources say that the apparatus can be removed should the wearer like to walk about without looking like the slightest breeze will knock them into the next county. Multi-person transport is still in beta phase, but if their slogan is anything to go by, it should be on the public market before you can say, calling all passengers, your bust is boarding. Speaking of sudden jolts into the blue, Meta's refreshing streak of prints that don't scare small children continues with the addition of Magical Moonlight. That hood is fracking amazing, even if this cut is made for Tic Tacs. I don't even care, just don't wake me up. I'm having the fondest dream that Meta is cleaned up, gone to rehab, and become a productive member of society. I know it's only a matter of time before they start having their teddy bears turn tricks on fruit to get their fix, but so help me if we can have this small moment, it makes it all worthwhile. Moving on to things more opaque than the mental states of the people who thought that an MTO for Cream Cookie collection was at all acceptable without the best cut, Angelic Pretty's drop of Praising Stars and Angels of Prayer went off with all the fanfare of a funeral parlor because you can't see shit from afar, and that is kind of important in the purchase-making decision. The series comes in such colorways as Eye Exam White, Astigmatism Ivory, and Blind as a Bat Black. Angelic Pretty decided not to put a cross on it, even though it's named Praising Stars and Angels of Prayer. And this is relevant to you because it really isn't. I'm just wondering what goes through their heads when they shove a frack ton of Jesus up the ass of an undersea print, but there's nary a holy stick left over for fucking Praising Stars and Angels of Prayer. At least Flower Power here isn't sending me conflicting signals, and Dream Sky arrived just in time to lend rainbow shooting stars to Pride Month's Technicolor parade of gay. Moving on to social news, Facebook group Ruffle Chat decided to ask all the questions with the query that must be quoted verbatim. I just wanted to ask about people's thoughts on Ita bags and Itas in general. I found some Ita bags are pretty good for quick cohort saves. Is it fashion violation, and why is Lolita so strict as opposed to other J fashions? Many commenters reported being shocked that this wasn't a troll. Several more tried to convey a distinction between Ita bags and being an Ita oneself, and to actually answer the fruit salad of a question, I'd like to make myself very clear. The major difference between Ita bags and Itas is that the former is a storage container cosplaying the perverse obsessions of its owner, and the latter is a bin of bad lace and colorblindness cosplaying a competent human being. The intermingling is understandably confusing, but the real distinction is whether the frighteningly ornamented creature is emitting some kind of high-pitched shriek. Generally speaking, bags don't possess the ability to deafen surrounding people with the decibels usually reserved for shattering glass. Both are fashion violations, and Lolita is strict specifically to discourage such creatures from joining its ranks. It's self-defense, really. As that about wraps up the week, we turn towards Last Week Lolita News' next special segment. Wherein everything was posted publicly, this did not encourage discretion, and everything was translated into utter horse hockey. Welcome to Klepto Designo. It all started in Lolita Updates. An unsuspecting party had the misfortune to post this equally unfortunate photo to the Facebook group, and as the first comment was, "I heard you like bows," followed by reaction images and GIFs, one can imagine where this thread was headed well before we even get to anything of substance. What one might not have imagined was the designers showing up in thread to handle the discourse themselves, wherein they comported themselves in a highly professional manner. I'm just kidding, they flipped them off. Like you do. Of course, more image macros followed. Someone said it looked like the designer themselves might have posted the photo, so try not to be dicks, and one final image followed before the designer returned to say that they have years of experience, own a shop, and are a recognized designer because they have recognition by the authorities. Whether or not it was the formal committee on fashion violations aside, another commenter then came forward to impart that, as a designer themselves, it would be best to create your own illustrations. They've seen this unicorn at children's birthday parties, maybe do some market research before releasing a product, take criticism in stride, and look to establish brands for the basics of the style. Calm, coherent, and completely lost in the designer, who then flies into some kind of shit fit in Spanish that was immediately butchered by auto-translate. I will do my best to capture its true essence. Ahem. My designs are independent, so not everyone has to like it. Something something meanies, there are so many poorly educated people, and my design is so qualified to be Lolita because my teacher said so, and Lolita is glamour, but it has to convey tenderness and sweetness too, and I put unicorns on it because unicorns are very cute, I like them, and I don't need to copy from other brands because I have my own ideas, thank you very much. Another poor soul shows up to say that they just wanted to help, and that anyone with a store should know that listening to potential clients is part of the process. And the designer returns with, I have things to do, I have no time to keep commenting, bye. So you would think it was over. Those of you familiar with the trajectory of the show know better, but we'll give the newcomers a break for their faith in humanity. It's only a matter of time before they're just as jaded as you and I, because things were about to get dialed up to what the fuck, as a previous commenter weighed in with an example of a unicorn print and imparted that criticism should be used to improve their work before dropping a screen cap along with the missive that editing Google Images is not designing. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that this independent designer that doesn't need to copy other brands because they have their own ideas features the same unicorn that pops up when you Google birthday cartoon unicorn. I mean, it's only the 13th result, and I'm sure it's only once. Never mind, there it is again and again and again and again. Did I mention that it's the first result when you search birthday unicorn? Never mind, here's a whole page of them. Isn't that just the most coincidental coinky-dink you ever done saw? Surprise, surprise, the designer that has no time to keep commenting reappears. Auto-translate can't make heads or tails of what they said, but judging by that unnecessary amount of emojis, I'm willing to bet it wasn't "please forgive me for stealing the design from a children's birthday card and calling it my own, for you see I get my sense of validation from lying to strangers on the internet." This is followed by the dick measuring assurance that everyone can watch their interview on TV and radio, and concludes that the reason people don't like their design is that they're jealous. You see, she says, not everyone can wear this dress. It takes a certain personality and physicality to sport their design. Which translates to, you're all a bunch of boring fat bitches and I didn't want you to like it anyway, bacas. It had to be said, excuse me while I rinse my mouth out with soap, I can only speak weeb for 2 seconds without actual physical discomfort. She then flounces fantastically into the distance, and few comments follow before a mod ends our collective suffering by closing the thread before anyone else loses an undue amount of brain cells. Lolita Updates returns to its Chinese spree of horrors, and that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching Last Week Lolita News, and be sure to tune in next week when we tackle the tough topics like, what does it feel like to steal from children? Is potassium an aesthetic? And how long do we have to wait until that bow gains sentience and tries to kill us all? Next time on Last Week Lolita News. This has been Tyler, you've been watching Scarfing Scarves, and before you mainline vodka and try to convince yourself that no one would sink low enough to steal a mythical creature and imprison it on cheap satin, you should know that this show is sponsored in part by Lolita Des, a secondhand Lolita and J-fashion shop based in Japan with excellent English-speaking staff and an official sponsor of Last Week Lolita News. Lolita Des, when independent designers stalk children's birthday parties, steal their unicorns, and accuse anyone who says boo of being jealous because they've been on TV, and we all know that's the real mark of a quality product. How would we ever put our socks on without them? You can spend money at their shop to make yourself feel better. They have brand. Link to their shop below, and to wrap this up with a big fracking bow, I'd like to thank my patrons for somehow enduring my continued prattling. I'm not certain why you stick around, but you guys make this show 10 times more awesome. And should you like to plumb the depths of combined neuroses that is part and parcel to the creative process, wonder what diagnoses would best suit as explanations, or generally enjoy watching a tragically long-winded human being try to stuff entire dictionaries into a sentence in an effort to cover a personality so wretched it's best to wear a hazmat suit should you get within 10 meters, then head over to patreon.com/lastweeklolitanews for more content that is guaranteed to leave you filled with regret. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you next time on Last Week Lolita News. Still here? I know you've all forgotten you left the window open or are waiting for the cohort shots, but before we get there, I'd like to say I'm going to be a guest at Delta H-Con from July 13th to 15th in Houston. I'll be hosting the Lolita Fashion Boot Camp, and should you like to watch what happens when I can't cut out the roughly 50,000 expletives when I fuck up, or just feel like having some acidic prat rattle on at you at a rate 10 times faster than reasonably necessary, then come on down and I'm sure you'll leave wishing you'd never spent valuable minutes of your life watching what is sure to be a truly traumatizing event. before dropping a cream cap. A cream cap. That's a different genre, Tyler. You don't want no cream caps.